September 1930. A conference hall in Königsberg, Germany. During a coffee break discussion on the foundations of mathematics, a 24-year-old nobody raises his hand and mentions, almost apologetically, something he thinks he's proven. Most of the room doesn't understand it. Nobody realizes what just happened, except one man in the audience. 24 hours later, on that very same stage, the most famous mathematician alive would declare that mathematics had no limits. He was wrong, and the proof was already sitting in the room. To understand why that mattered, you need to meet David Hilbert. By 1900, Hilbert was the most powerful mathematician on Earth, the man who set the agenda for an entire century. That year in Paris, he stood up and listed 23 unsolved problems he believed would define mathematics going forward. It wasn't arrogance. It was a promise that every mathematical question, given enough time, had an answer. Hilbert's ultimate dream became known as Hilbert's program. He wanted to place all of mathematics on a foundation so solid that a machine, not even a human, could check any proof mechanically, symbol by symbol. A system that was complete, every true statement provable, and consistent, never able to prove a contradiction. Certainty forever. This wasn't just philosophy. Hilbert wanted a finite mechanical procedure that could, in principle, decide the truth of any mathematical statement. If it worked, mathematics would become unshakable. No paradoxes, no doubt, no unanswered questions left standing. Every mathematician of the 1920s was, in some way, working to make Hilbert's dream real. Enter Kurt Gödel. Quiet, sickly, obsessively private, Gödel was a young logician from Vienna who spent his 20s attending meetings of the Vienna Circle without saying much at all. He wasn't trying to destroy Hilbert's program. He was trying to help complete it. What he found instead would haunt mathematics for the rest of the century. Gödel's trick was deceptively simple. He found a way to turn mathematical statements into numbers, a technique now called Gödel numbering, so that a sentence about arithmetic could also, secretly, be a sentence about itself. Using that trick, he constructed a sentence that essentially said, "This statement cannot be proven." Think about what that sentence means. If the system could prove it, the system would be proving a false statement, meaning it was broken. If the system couldn't prove it, then the sentence was true but unprovable. Either way, no system of that kind could be both complete and know it was consistent. Not because mathematicians weren't smart enough, because it was logically impossible. On September 7, 1930, Gödel quietly announced this result at a round-table discussion in Königsberg. Almost nobody blinked. The very next morning, on a public radio broadcast from the same conference, David Hilbert delivered his most famous line, "Wir müssen wissen, wir werden wissen, we must know, we will know." He had no idea the dream behind those words had already been disproven, one floor away, the day before. One person in that Königsberg audience did understand. John von Neumann, already one of the sharpest minds in mathematics, pulled Gödel aside after his talk. Within weeks, von Neumann had independently derived the second incompleteness theorem, proving that a system can never demonstrate its own consistency. He wrote to Gödel to share the discovery. Gödel wrote back. He'd already published it. Once mathematicians understood what Gödel had actually shown, the shock set in. It wasn't just one gap in one system. It applied to any formal system powerful enough to describe basic arithmetic. Truth, it turned out, was bigger than proof. There would always be true statements no system could ever reach. The implications didn't stop at pure mathematics. 6 years later, a young Alan Turing reformulated Gödel's result in terms of machines and computation, asking whether a computer could ever decide if a program would run forever. The answer was no. The halting problem was undecidable, for exactly the same reason Gödel's sentence was unprovable. Modern computer science was born out of mathematics discovering its own limits. Gödel eventually fled Europe for Princeton, where he formed one of the most famous friendships in 20th century science, with Albert Einstein. Einstein once said that in his later years, he went to his office at the Institute for Advanced Study mainly for the privilege of walking home with Gödel. Gödel's mind never stopped looking for hidden flaws. When he applied for U.S. citizenship, he told Einstein he had found a logical loophole in the American Constitution that could legally allow it to become a dictatorship. Einstein spent the car ride to the interview trying to talk him out of mentioning it. At the hearing, Gödel started to explain it anyway. The judge, thankfully, changed the subject. In his final years, Gödel became convinced that people were trying to poison him. He would only eat food prepared by his wife, Adele. In 1978, when Adele herself was hospitalized for months, Gödel simply stopped eating. He died of starvation, weighing under 30 kilograms. The man who proved the limits of formal systems couldn't escape the limits of his own mind. Here's the strange part. Gödel's theorem isn't a failure of mathematics. It's a discovery about it, proof that truth will always be larger than any single set of rules built to capture it. Every time someone claims an algorithm, a formal system, or even an AI could one day know everything, Gödel's ghost is standing right there. Some questions aren't hard. They're provably unanswerable, not because we're not clever enough, but because certainty itself has a ceiling. Every video on this channel is built around one idea, one pivotal moment that quietly changed everything, explained clearly in under 15 minutes. If that's useful to you, subscribing means you don't miss the next one, and there's always a next one. And if this video changed how you think about something, even a little, hitting like is what tells YouTube to show it to someone else who needs it too. If this one was worth your time, there's another turning point video waiting for you right there.